Imagine waking up tomorrow to a headline reading: California declares independence. The Golden State breaks away from the United States. It sounds like something straight out of a dystopian novel or an alternate history, but the reality is, this idea has been gaining traction. California, home to nearly 40 million people, a massive economy, and the birthplace of some of the world's most influential technological and cultural innovations, has a significant place in the American landscape. Now, imagine if this powerhouse of innovation, progressivism, and natural beauty were no longer part of the United States. What would happen to California, to America, and to the world at large? Could California, with its rich resources, diverse culture, and unique political climate, function as an independent nation? Or would the realities of secession come crashing down like an earthquake, shaking the foundations of California's identity and its place in the world? This thought-provoking question has spurred renewed debates, particularly in light of recent political and environmental shifts. Let's break down what California's departure from the Union might look like and examine the potential consequences of such an unprecedented move. Stick with me as we explore this fascinating and controversial issue, with new insights, commentary, and a unique perspective on what could unfold if the Golden State were to go solo. The spark of Calexit, a new movement for independence. The idea of California splitting from the United States is certainly not a new one. Over the years, various groups have floated the notion of Calexit, but it has gained new momentum, especially after the polarized political climate following Donald Trump's presidency. In fact, California has always had a sense of uniqueness, priding itself on its progressive values, diversity, and economic dominance. But what happens when a state's political culture diverges so significantly from the rest of the nation that it's no longer feasible to stay part of the same union? In recent years, California's frustration with federal policies on climate change, immigration, and social justice has led many to question whether staying within the United States is truly in the state's best interests. Imagine a California that no longer needs to negotiate with Washington for environmental policies or struggle with federal immigration laws. Could it truly flourish outside the Union, or would it face a series of challenges too great to overcome? A political earthquake, the impact on the U.S. and global power. One of the most immediate and glaring consequences of California's secession would be the profound shift in the American political landscape. California, as the most populous state in the U.S., wields immense influence in Congress, particularly in presidential elections, where the state's electoral votes have played a crucial role in deciding outcomes for decades. If California were to leave, the balance of power would dramatically shift toward Republicans, as Democratic candidates would lose a key stronghold. This shift could spark a chain reaction, leading to other states considering secession as well. Just as the U.S. once watched as former Soviet states broke away from Russia, we could see a fracturing of the Union. States like New York, Massachusetts, and Washington, which align closely with California's progressive politics, might contemplate their own future apart from the current Union. The idea of a fractured America would surely send ripples through the world, with implications far beyond politics. But would the U.S. government accept California's departure? Could they afford not to? Secession is not without precedent, but legal and constitutional challenges would be enormous. Would the Supreme Court allow California to go its own way? Or would this political experiment be shut down in the courts? California's economic power, could it survive on its own? California is not just a political powerhouse. It's an economic juggernaut. With an economy larger than many countries, it ranks as the fifth largest economy in the world, surpassing nations like the United Kingdom and India. The argument for independence hinges, in part, on this economic might. California is a major contributor to the U.S. economy, but it also feels as though the state gives far more than it receives. Supporters of Calexit argue that an independent California could harness its tax revenue for the state's own purposes, directing funds toward its progressive goals, such as renewable energy and universal health care. With control over its economic policies, California could chart its own course toward a future based on its values and priorities, free from the constraints of federal oversight. However, even California's vast resources would not make independence easy. The state would have to sever ties with the U.S., Mexico-Canada Agreement USMCA, affecting trade relationships and potentially driving up consumer costs. In addition, the logistics of managing its own currency, infrastructure, and international trade would pose significant challenges. As a newly independent nation, California would face a period of economic instability as it navigates these transitions. The legal and constitutional roadblocks to secession. While the idea of California becoming an independent country is appealing to some, the legal and constitutional hurdles are daunting. The U.S. Constitution does not allow states to secede. This was definitively established by the Supreme Court in 1869, which ruled that states cannot unilaterally leave the Union. Even if a ballot initiative is successful and Californians vote for independence, it would not be legally binding. The federal government would be under no obligation to respect such a decision. California's own constitution reinforces this, as it aligns with the supremacy of the U.S. Constitution. So, even if a state's residents overwhelmingly voted for independence, the state would face years of legal challenges and political strife. The practical challenges of negotiating with the federal government for a peaceful separation would likely lead to long and contentious debates, with no clear resolution in sight. California on the global stage, building diplomatic relationships. In a world where larger and more established nations dominate the geopolitical landscape, California's move to independence would bring a new set of challenges when it comes to international diplomacy. The state's economy might be substantial, but it would still need to carve out its place among global powers. California would need to negotiate trade deals, secure military alliances, and establish diplomatic ties with other countries. It's possible that California could align itself with progressive nations around the world, particularly in areas such as climate change and human rights. As a global leader in environmental policy, California's commitment to green technologies and sustainable practices could become a cornerstone of its international identity. But California's lack of a standing military and the complexities of establishing its national security would present challenges in a world increasingly divided by geopolitical tensions. The ripple effect. How would California's secession affect other states? Should California break away? The domino effect could be significant. If other states with large populations and strong economies followed suit, the United States could be reduced to a shell of its former self. Would Florida, Texas, or even parts of New England choose to leave? The idea of states going their separate ways would lead to complex and potentially dangerous political situations. Moreover, without California, the U.S. would lose much of its technological innovation, agricultural output, and cultural influence. The U.S. could face challenges in maintaining its position as a global superpower, and the impact would be felt far beyond the borders of North America. California's identity. What does it mean to be Californian? In the event of independence, California's unique cultural identity would be amplified. The state has long been a melting pot of diverse cultures, ideas, and lifestyles, and this would likely become even more pronounced in a new, independent California. From Hollywood's global influence on entertainment to the tech innovations coming out of Silicon Valley, California's cultural impact would shape its national identity. Yet, California is not without its internal divisions. Urban centers like Los Angeles and San Francisco are in stark contrast to the more rural, conservative areas like the Central Valley. Would California's independence only deepen these divides? How would an independent California reconcile its differences, especially given that many residents from rural and conservative areas may not support secession? The future of California's independence movement. While the prospect of California breaking away from the United States remains unlikely in the near future, the ongoing discussions surrounding Calexit are a reflection of deeper issues. The movement underscores the tension between federal authority and state sovereignty and highlights the growing frustration of those who feel their values are no longer represented on a national stage. Whether or not California ever achieves independence, one thing is certain: the conversation about the future of the state and its place within the United States will continue to evolve. As political, economic, and environmental challenges persist, the debate over California's future may continue to shape the American political landscape for years to come. So, as we look to the future, one question remains: would California's secession lead to prosperity and a new era of autonomy? Or would it lead to instability and challenges far greater than anyone anticipated? The answer lies in the delicate balance between idealism and pragmatism, and the world will be watching closely as California's future unfolds.